In today's episode, I'm looking at the top 20 players in fantasy basketball for the last 2 weeks in category leagues and in points leagues. Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I am the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com and at Yahoo Sports Australia, and you can find me on Twitter as always at redrock_bball and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today, looking back at the last 2 weeks of action at the top 20 players for fantasy leagues, for category leagues, and for points leagues. So let's talk about it right now. Start straight into category leagues. Last 2 weeks, per game value, excluding turnovers, how I literally do it all the time. Number one is Al Horford. Now, Horford's played one game. It was a really good game, but I think it's worth having him here, not because we expect him to be the number one player moving forward. If you want to see what my projections are moving forward, they're on basketballmonster.com. You can see them. But 21-11, 5 triples, 3 steals, and a block. And I think what it does highlight is Horford still has it to a degree. He's not going to be this good. He might not even be a top 90 player this season, but I do think that he probably should be a rostered player in 12-team leagues and probably 10-team leagues as well. This just shows there is still something there. He can still provide some defense. He can still shoot. He can still show some rebounding chops, and there is still something there for him, which is great. Number two.
I'm a fun guy.
Kawhi's played 5 games and he's getting back, ready to get back to action in Friday's game. He is playing 33 minutes a night, averaging 28 points with 6 rebounds and 5 assists with 2 steals. Nothing completely out of the ordinary with what he's doing. Maybe the 58% shooting is a little bit high. In fact, it definitely is high. 65% from 2 is going to come down, but this is a guy who's the 6th ranked player this season, and I think on a per game basis, he can be top 5 for the rest of the year personally. So he's been awesome. Number 3, Kevin Durant. He's played 40 minutes a night over the last 2 weeks. That is just too much. 32 points per game, 8 rebounds and 5 assists with 2.3 blocks. So that has really bumped him up. But he is the number 2 ranked player so far this season on a per game basis. I'm not sure that it sticks that high. I just worry that the minutes won't be this high. The usage might drop a little bit with Harden there, and those block numbers probably won't sustain that high. But another awesome stint from Kevin Durant. Number 4, Big Chungus.
Big Chungus, Big Chungus, Big Chungus.
Nikola Jokic, 27, 13, and 6 with 1.5 steals. Now, he's been the number 1 player this season, and he's been the number 1 player in these 2-week increment shows quite a bit, but I have mentioned a lot that you do expect the steals and the assists to come down. Well, over the last 6 games, he's down to 6 assists per game. He was averaging like 11 and 12 per game, so they have come down, and the steals were at 2 per game. They're down to 1.5. The efficiency stuff, 56 and 86, fine. He's shooting 25% from 3, so that can increase. It's just that I think this is probably a more realistic range for Jokic for the rest of the season in this sort of area with that drop in assists coming in. And we've seen that take place. And then number 5 is Jim Harden. So for all the worries about the struggles, Harden is still the 5th ranked player over the last 2 weeks. He's the 5th ranked player this season. He is playing 41 minutes a night, so that's a factor. But 24, 7, and 12 with 1.3 steals. And one of the big things I look at here and go, well, okay, well, his usage can increase. He can score a bit more. But 1.3 steals and 0.6 blocks is actually really low for Harden. He can be a 1.8 steals, 1.9 blocks guy, and that's going to push him right back up into that top 2 area. 87 from the line, shooting 47 from the field, like really strong stuff. Let's go on to the next group of guys. Number 6 is Damian Lillard. He is benefiting from McCollum being out. 38 minutes, 33 points, 33% usage, 8 assists. McCollum had been doing a ton of ball handling, and Lillard had seen those assist numbers not quite be there, but they've bumped back up. Over 4 threes at 38%, 96 from the line. This is sort of the area where he was to be drafted, in that 6 to 9 range. He's 6th over the last 2 weeks. He's 10th over the season. I think he's going to be around 5 to 7 by the end of the year, and this is about right. So he's just sort of doing what he does. Number 7 is Joel Embiid. Only 4 games, but 34, 5, and 10. 1 steal, 1.3 blocks, 1.3 triples, True shooting of 70%, which includes 57 from the field. Again, nothing there sounds outrageous. He's the 4th ranked player this season. He's 7th over the last 2 weeks. I think that he's probably going to be a top 10 guy for the rest of the year. There's always going to be injury concerns, and I'm not sure if we ever shake those concerns, even if they're real or not. That'll always still be in our mind, but he's been great. Number 8 is the skater boy, Zach LaVine. LaVine is the 9th ranked player this season, 8th over the last 2 weeks. He's averaging 26, 5, and 6.5 with almost 4 triples. So what's not real here? 86 from the line on 6 attempts? Yeah, that seems legit. 45% from 3? It's probably a little bit high. But 60% from 2, that's where I go, okay, maybe we drop and we go back from 53% overall from the field down to 47, which is still good. And that takes you down to being like the 9th or 12th ranked guy, something, 15th ranked guy in that area. But he's going to be late first, early second would be my guess. 9th ranked player Miles Turner, 4 games, 35 minutes, 19 points, but 4.3 blocks. Continuing to block shots like an absolute crazy person and shooting 60% from the field, which is including 50% from 3, which will come down, and 67% from 2, which will also come down. So he's been really good. He's the 14th ranked player this year. There's no reason. Actually, that's not true. There are lots of reasons why he can't stay a top 20 guy, and number one of those is he doesn't continue to block 3.5 plus shots per game. But if that keeps up, then he'll remain in this area. Another shot blocker at number 10, the Kerner, Clint Capela. Big Clint energy, has 18 points, 16 rebounds in his last 7, 3.7 blocks on 59%. And of course, in a punt free throw scenario, because he's shooting 60% from the line, he'd be a lot higher. We're also not expecting him to continue to block almost 4 shots per game. He was on a massive run, fueled by that 10-block game against the Cavs, I'm going to say, or Timberwolves. I don't exactly remember which one it was. But 18 and 16, yeah, that's probably a little bit high there as well with 21% usage, but he's been awesome. He's the 48th ranked player this year. And it just goes to show how much of improvement he has had, though, to be 48th over the course of the season. I think he can be top 40, maybe even a little bit higher for the rest of the year, but this, I think, is on the high side. Number 11, Brad Beal. Lots of minutes, lots of usage, 45% usage over the last 3 games. It is going to come down, and this is why I say Beal is a sell high. Not that I don't think he's awesome. Not that I'm worried about a trade. None of those things. It's that 45% usage is not real. It cannot stick. Westbrook is going to come back and inadvisedly take shots. Hachimura is going to come back. Bertans is going to come back. Ish Smith's going to come back. Wagner's going to come back. Some of them coming back on Friday. So while Beal will remain good, he won't be 45% usage. And that's simply what it is. The 37 points might go down to 33 points. And it's fine. And he can be like at the 12th best guy, 10th best guy, maybe. But he's going to come down a little bit, especially from the last week or so. LeBron at number 12.
LeBron James.
Big run of games here from LeBron, who isn't a top 20 player this season, but averaging 28, 7, and 7 with 52 and 73. The reason he's down from last year mainly is the assists have dropped down, almost 4 per game, or almost 3 per game, sorry. He's hitting threes at a really high rate as well, 47% over the last 7 games. I expect that to come down, but LeBron's LeBron. He's going to be solid, but more back-end second than back-end first than we've seen in the past. Number 13, Nikola Vucevic. I don't really know what's going to slow him down. And when I look at everyone else, I can see things that might slow. I look at Vuce and go 25 and 10, 1.4 steals, 4 assists, 48, 93. None of that looks real, like it's going to, or none of that looks unreal that it's going to fall. Maybe I look at the threes and go 47% could come down, and I look at the 36 minutes and go maybe that can come down. But mid-second round looks about right for Vuce. Number 14, Kyrie Irving, 40 minutes a night for him as well. 29 points on 28 usage. Only 2.5 threes, weirdly, even though he's shooting 41%. He's just not taking that many. 5 assists and 1.4 blocks, which is obviously a little bit high. I think Irving is right in this middle second round sort of range. He's been really good and he's adapted pretty well to Harden being there. And then at number 15, the Jedi, OG Anunoby.
But what about scarves?
OG.
Balenciaga
Stop,
ones.
OG. You better stop, OG.
He had a real big game in here, and he's hitting almost 4 threes a game over his last 6, and doing that at 61%. So there's your absolute dogs balls stat that's going to fall. 18 points, 2.3 steals. I think he's leading the league in steals this year, so that can continue. It's just that shooting. That 61% is not going to continue. He can be a top 40, top 50 sort of player. Number 16 into that next group of players is Trae Young, and he has started to improve. He's the 27th ranked player this year. He's averaging now over these last 7, 28 and 9, only shooting 41%. but 88 from the line, including 42% from three. The 2-point range can continue to improve, and he looks like he's got things figured out a little bit more. At number 17, Luka Doncic. Yeah, the steal and block numbers, which were way up to begin this season, have fallen back, and that is always the thing, or one of the things that always kept him away from that number one spot for me. 27, 9, and 11 is awesome, but 0.9 steals, 0.4 blocks, and then subpar with his 46 and 76. And realistically, yeah, he can be a bit better than this, Donch, but he's that guy that in that 6 to 9 range, I think, is probably more realistic than in the 1 to 3 range, where he was getting drafted in quite a few scenarios. Number 18, the Crucifix, Christian Wood, 24 and 13, 2 threes, 1.5 blocks, 55 and 74, shooting 39% from three. And honestly, I look at that and I said maybe Vooch is a guy that I don't think there's much regression. What the hell does Wood do differently here? He's shooting 39% from three. That's not outrageous. 60% from two. He has a lot of shots around the rim. Only 1.5 blocks, 12 rebounds, 34 minutes. So nothing here is outrageous. In fact, he could even be a better free throw shooter, shooting 74%. So he could maybe even go up from here. 19, Gordie Hayward, 27 and 5 in 38 minutes. His shooting is pretty high, 46% from three. I think he's going to settle in the 20 to 30 range, so it's not that far off where he normally will be. Then at number 20 is Steph Curry, 26 points per game for Steph, almost 5 triples, but the reason he's down lower than that is he hasn't blocked a shot in 7 games, and he's only had 6 steals over that time. And he's a guy that in his peak was a 2 steals per game player. Now, we don't expect that, but 1.3, 1.4 would be good, and then he can jump back up into that top 10, which is where I think he will be for the rest of this season. So there are all your category league guys. Let's look at the top 20 in points leagues. It is a little bit different here, of course, because of the different format, and we highlighted Doncic being down at number 17 in category leagues. Well, in points leagues over the last 2 weeks, Doncic is right up the top because those steals and blocks, having lower numbers for those doesn't matter in points leagues as much because they're worth only 3 points in compared to a point being worth a full point, and the percentages don't impact. So he's averaging 55 points over that time, which is pretty close to his season average, where he's the number 2 ranked player. Number 2 is Kevin Durant, averaging 55 points as well. Yeah, number 4 ranked player for the year. Number 3 is Big Chungus, who's averaging 55, which is a bit down from the 56 that he's been averaging, but he's still strong in this top 3 to 5 area for points leagues. And then number 4, Joel Embiid. I've got him projected to be 4th for the rest of the year. He's 4th currently. He's averaging almost 55 points. He looks pretty good there. And then the Kerner himself, Clint Capela, 52 points a game over the last 7, fueled by those big block numbers, big rebound numbers, and big scoring numbers. He's only averaging 41 for the season, so I do expect a decent level of regression there for the Kerner. Number 6, James Harden. He's averaging 51 points, which is higher than his season average. This is strong. I think he's a top 5 fantasy points guy rest of the way. 7 is Beal. I already highlighted my concern with his abnormally large usage. He's averaging 51, but interesting in saying that, he's averaging 51, but for the course of the season, he's averaging 52 fantasy points per game. So while the usage will come down, he's still been producing. I'm still not sure that I buy him as being this good, number 7, but hey, there is some precedent for it. Number 8, Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Giannis is averaging 28 and 13, but it's the free throw percentage which is really killing. He's also not getting steals and blocks, 0.6 steals, 0.8 blocks, averaging 51 fantasy points, which is actually more than he's averaging over the course of the season, where he's at just 51. I think he can push back to the 53 or 54 mark. Number 9 is Anthony Davis, another name who was conspicuously absent from the top 20 in category leagues. Davis is averaging 50 points, up from the 46 over the course of the season. I'm not sure that he's a 50-point guy for the rest of this year. I think he's more of a 48 to 49-point guy, which is still really good. He's averaging 21 and 9 with 2.3 blocks, and he has had some weird moments with his free throws this year too. Number 10 is Dame Lillard, averaging bang on 50 over the last 5 games. There's your top 10. Number 11 is Kawhi Leonard. We talked about him already. And number 12 is Al Horford. His one game yielded 49 fantasy points. He was previously averaging 28 fantasy points, so obviously a big outlier there for Horf. Number 13 is LeBron. Number 14 is Trey. Both guys averaging just over 48 fantasy points. And number 15 is Nikola Vucevic, who is also up on his season average, 47 versus 45.5. We've talked about the individual stats from those guys, but that's where they're sitting in a points league. And then for the last 5, number 16 is the Crucifix, Christian Wood. Number 17 is big fella
Rudy Gobert.
Gobert on an absolute roll, much like the Jazz are, and he's doing it in only 30 minutes. 16 points, 15 rebounds, 3 blocks, 46 fantasy points. That's up from the 41 that he's averaging. I think he's more of a 44 guy, but that's up from where he is on the season. Number 18, Andre Drummond, who they're just pumping an astonishing amount of usage into. 46 average over the last 2 weeks, 46 average over the season. I think it drops under 40 over the coming weeks. Personally, maybe I'm wrong on that, and that drops him to being maybe a top 30 player rather than a top 20 player. Number 19, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, 45 points per game over his last 6, including 24, 6, and 7 with a steal and 0.8 blocks. He's been really good, and I think he's got room to improve because his usage hasn't been particularly high. And then at number 20 is Kyrie Irving, averaging almost 45 fantasy points. The next 4 out of the top 20 are Julius Randle, Bam Adebayo, Zach LaVine, and De'Aaron Fox. I should have given you those next 4 out for category leagues, so let's do that as well. The 21 to 24 ranked players: Gilgeous-Alexander, Adebayo, Ayton, and Michael Porter Jr. That's for category leagues. All right, guys, that'll do me for today. I'll be back with a what to watch for to preview Saturday's games. Subscribe, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.